Hi, everyone. Welcome to our author chat with Albert Whitman and Company here at NCTE. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lisa White. I'm the Associate Manager of Marketing and Publicity here at Albert Whitman and Company. And I'm so excited to get to speak to Alexandra Alessandri today. We're going to be talking about her new children's book, Felíz New Year, Ava Gabriela. Just a little housekeeping rules. If you do have any questions, you can put it in the group chat, or between questions, you can, kind of go off mute and raise your hand and ask it. We welcome any questions at all today. And these will be recorded and we'll have them up on social media later as well if you do miss any Q&As that you'd like to go back and reference. All right, so I'd like to go ahead and introduce Alexandra. Thank you so much for joining us, Alexandra. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here with you and to be here at NCTE. So a little bit about me. I am the author of Felíz New Year, Ava Gabriela. I have it right here. It is my debut, and it is beautifully illustrated by Adi Rivera Sonda. It is about a shy little girl who is visiting her extended family in Colombia, and it's a very large family. It's a very loud family, and she is very shy. And so she needs to find her voice to be able to enjoy in the festivities, including popping the Año Viejo. And I actually have my own Año Viejo here with me, keeping me company, because I am also very shy. So I am a Colombian American. And the story is very much rooted in a lot of my own traditions that I experienced growing up. I have a very large family, and so a lot of those experiences definitely made their way into the story. I also teach at Broward College. I'm an associate professor of English there, and I write some poetry as well.
Great. So if folks aren't aware, this is actually your first book published. So how was it to be a first-time author? What was the experience like? Was there anything that surprised you about writing your first book?
So it was fantastic. My editor is amazing, and she really helped me just get Ava Gabriela's voice out. What surprised me? I want to say everything, just because I thought I knew everything about publishing going into it. And then I realized that I actually didn't know everything about publishing and just the way everything worked and getting the arcs. And I was not prepared for the emotion that came in seeing the first illustrations, the first time I saw the cover, receiving the arc. Just the emotional journey in being a debut. I thought I would be prepared for, but I was not.
Definitely a lot of exciting emotions, and you get that box of books and it opens, and I don't think a lot of people realize how exciting it is to open that box and get to see the cover for the first time. It's a lot of work that goes into putting in a new book.
It does.
So what made you to decide this topic for your book, especially New Year's, but also, the aspect with anxiety as well?
So on the Colombian side, on the culture side, I've always wanted to incorporate a lot of my traditions into the stories. And I joke around that I always grew up being very conscious of my Colombian identity, but it wasn't until I was an adult, it actually wasn't until my dad passed away that I really started trying to reconnect with who I was as a Colombian. And I've spent a lot of time just learning more about my culture. I message my cousins a lot in Colombia and just trying to really get a sense of everything that's layered. One of the things that I really wanted to do was kind of combat the stereotypes of what Colombians are, or what we think of when we think of Colombians, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s when Colombian was synonymous with some not so great things. And so I grew up hearing all the stereotypes. I grew up always in kind of internalizing that. And so in a way, this is my ode to Colombia, about the part that is beautiful and that I love so much. In terms of anxiety and the anxious and the shyness, it is very much an internal quality. I have anxiety. I have especially in social situations where I am unfamiliar. It's a new, unfamiliar place. And so I think a lot of my own shyness and anxiety definitely served as inspiration for Ava's story. And more than anything, I wanted to kind of give the message that it's okay to be shy. When you're ready, you will come out. Your voice will come out and play.
Exactly. That's a great message. So there's a lot of fun, cool traditions that are in this book that are showcased. What's one that you're looking forward to celebrating this new year?
There's so many. So the Año Viejo, which is the old year doll, is one of my favorite. I don't make them as great as my aunts do, and but it is one that I really enjoy. I like the metaphor of being able to say goodbye to the old year, especially this year. Just being able to just do away the old and bring in the new and the new hope, the new possibility. And so I plan on making quite a few of these Año Viejos just to make sure that 21 can start off on the right foot.
Definitely. And looks like we've got some questions coming in too. What other Colombian traditions or stories do you hope to share with readers through your work?
Wow. So I've been very fascinated with our folklore and like the mano peluda, the silbón, and all these mythical creatures that I grew up hearing about. One of them is the patasola, and one of my cousins swears that she saw one when she was a kid. And so I really, really hope to be able to do something with those. The mano peluda is the hairy hand, which was the story that older cousins and grown-ups might tell their kids, kind of like those campfire stories to just scare them. And I would really love to kind of explore the legends and the mythical folklore of my country.
Great. Now we did have somebody ask what the age range is for this book, and it is age groups 4 to 8. So it is that picture book kind of age, and grades like kindergarten to 3rd grade. So was there any real life inspiration for your main character?
So there was. Obviously there was that personal connection with me, but I know a real life Ava Gabriela. She's actually my friend's daughter. Her name is Ava Gabriela. And during one New Year's Eve, she was very shy and she was hiding behind her mom. And when the fireworks started just exploding, she started squealing and laughing and giggling. And that was really the moment I remember turning to her and saying, "Ava, you found your voice." And that was kind of like the spark that took everything, all the seeds of my heritage and the shyness and stuff, and just kind of pulled it together.
Oh, that's awesome. So what was kind of the writing process for you since this was your first book? Did you have an idea? Did you come, with a fully written story? What was the process for you like?
So the process for this one, I participated in a story storm earlier that year. Before I sat down to write it, I had participated in Story Storm, and one of the prompts asked to just think about our childhood and the cultural aspects of our upbringing that might bring story. And that's when I started really entertaining having a story with the 12 grapes and the Año Viejo. I also had luggage and whatever, all the traditions that I grew up with. But it took several months towards the end of the year and New Year's, when we had that with my friend's daughter, to really kind of simmer and start taking shape as a story. And soon after our New Year's Eve here, then I sat down and just started, it just poured out. And I wrote long. I normally don't write long, and this one ended up, the first draft I think was something like 1,200 words. So it was more like a short story than it was a picture book. And so I had to revise and revise and revise to try to get to the shape and within the word count, and for it to really fit into picture book, as a picture book.
Yeah, now since it is a picture book, obviously we have beautiful illustrations. Do you have a favorite that you'd like to share? I know it's like
There's so many. That's a hard question. That's a hard question.
Or if not a
So
favorite
one of
one that like a little detail or something that you really like. I know it's really fun with picture books. There's sometimes those little hidden details that not everyone notices.
there are. So I'm going to say two things. One of the things that Addie did that I absolutely loved. So if it's okay, I'm going to share it too. One of the things that I absolutely loved is that she brought a lot of what had existed in my head as inside the farm. She brought it out. And so there were some parts like this one when Ava is, I don't know if you can see it, when she's wandering around the farm alone, kind of dejected because she wants to join in on fun and she just doesn't have the voice or the skills to be able to do that. Um, when I envisioned it, it was all inside. But when I saw the illustrations, I'm like, yes, why didn't it hadn't occurred to me. And it just brought so much life to Ava and into the setting. The other one that I really love, just because it has so many of the things that I personally cherish from my family and our traditions, is this one. And it's a spread. And you see everyone just enjoying. You see Ava with the Año Viejo right here, but you see the uncles and you see the family. And there's another one that's similar to that with the uncles playing their guitars. And that just really epitomized all the beauty of our traditions, and that we experienced that I experienced as I was growing up. So those are two of my favorites. But
Definitely. Now, I do want to say congratulations. You did get a Kirkus Ride review on this book, which was
yes,
something that we
thank
were
you.
all super proud of. When did you find out? How did it feel to kind of get that recognition? That's a pretty big deal.
It was. You always hope for it, but you kind of cushion your heart to hope too much because you don't want to be disappointed. But my editor, Andrea Hall, sent me an email and she let me know about it, and it was just one of those, really? They like it that much, that so it was very exciting. I've been I feel just very lucky with the response that it has received. And one of the things that I love most about that review, though, was that it really captured what I was trying to do with the shyness and the idea that it's okay to be shy, that when you're ready, your voice will come and play. And they really identified that because yes, it's a holiday story, but it's more than just a holiday story. So
Exactly. That's what I do really
yeah.
love about this book because there is so many holiday books that are wonderful holiday books, but a lot of times it is just very holiday focused. So to have something that you can share year round that is really relatable is a really neat part of the story.
Mm, thanks.
Now, Susie has another really great question. What advice would you give writers or students who want to incorporate their culture into their stories?
That's a great question. Um, I think one of the first steps in trying to incorporate our culture is to be able to just almost like take a step back and just go down memory lane and just do a lot of free writing and a lot of exercise and just trying to bring that out. I think there's sometimes a big fear that maybe there isn't an audience for our stories, for our culture, especially if it's a culture that is not mainstream. But if we can, sometimes just tapping into those memories just goes a long way into just finding a story idea, a story seedling.
Definitely. Now, obviously, we have a lot of teachers and readers that are joining us today with NCTE. Do you have a memorable teacher in your life that really helped you kind of fall in love with reading and writing?
That's a great question. Um, so my second grade teacher, Miss Prieto, um, was wonderful. I don't know that I would say specifically related to reading and writing, but she was the first teacher to really make me feel comfortable in being myself and in just giving me that space to, if I was shy, it was okay. She was very kind and very generous, and she will forever, and I'll never forget her name. But in terms of following down a path of reading, I want to say that it was actually my mom and my dad, because reading was so big in our family. I have a great uncle who was a writer and a poet, and my dad was really into the arts and into. So I have wonderful memories of being taken to the library with my mom taking me and just taking out stacks of books, and we had these cutouts in the wall that you can just kind of sit in the cutout with the book, and so it's a combination of the two.
Yeah, I was a big reader with my parents growing up. We read all my books to the point my dad had to started reading them backwards for fun because we went
Oh,
through all of them. Because you're
I
doing
love that.
like 5 or 6 words backward. Hilarious.
That's awesome.
Now, speaking of books when you were little, do you have a favorite children's book?
So a lot of the reading that I did when I was a kid was actually in Spanish. My parents would bring books from Colombia, so I have a lot of children's books from Colombia that I read. But one of the books that it was a series, Las Aventuras de Teo, or The Adventures of Teo, was one that I just remember always wanting to read. In terms of being around Ava's age, that was a book that I read a lot. In my middle school, I started more with Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley High, Sweet Valley Twins. I loved series and I loved adventure, so I would tend to gravitate towards those.
Definitely. Now, you're also a teacher, as you said. Has there been any skills or anything from the classroom that you have found to help you as a writer?
Yes, and so it's funny you asked that, because one of the sessions that I'm doing for NCTE is actually the writer in the classroom, and it's kind of how being an English teacher and being a writer sort of kind of inform themselves. One of the things that teaching writing has done for me as a writer is that it's really made me identify parts of the process and really look at what works and brainstorm with my own students what are some possibilities in terms of tackling brainstorming, or even that idea of being kind to yourself and offering yourself grace as you're writing that first draft, letting go of imposter syndrome. So those they do inform themselves.
Definitely. Now, so this is another great question. Have you ever considered translating some of those Columbia children's books? Is that something that you would ever think of doing, or have you ever thought about writing something in Spanish as well? I mean, there is
I
part
hadn't
of
thought,
Spanish
yeah.
in
Yes. So I've thought about writing in Spanish. I haven't thought about translating some of the Colombian children's books. I know I don't know enough about the like the laws or what the do's and the don'ts are and the rights and who owns what. So, but it would be very interesting. I would definitely love to write something in Spanish and maybe have something bilingual.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be really cool. So now, how do you, as you know, you're obviously creative and writer. How do you define creativity for you as a writer
Mm.
or as an educator as well?
I think part of being creativity, I think part of creativity is being able to think of kind of outside the norm, being able to come up with maybe solutions or ideas that might not be the first thing that you think about. I think part of it is allowing yourself the freedom to both uh, tap into the heart of what it is that is you want to say. Now, speaking as a creative writer, tapping into the heart of what you want to say without being confined to truth, like a literal truth, focusing instead on a more universal truth.
I really like that. Yeah.
Hopefully that made sense.
No, no, it does. I like the idea. And I think, you know, I always like working in children's book because we do have that ability to kind of bend truth a little bit and play with things a lot more because you're writing for kids, and kids have a lot more imagination. They're
Yeah,
willing to kind of look at a bigger picture in different ways than, once
yeah,
you become an adult. So you get to have a lot more fun in that aspect, I think.
yeah. And I think part of it is it's believing in magic, and it's not necessarily the wizards, but it's just the magic of possibility, the magic that things can happen, the magic of having nothing and all of a sudden having a story. That's a whole world, a whole character, whole that is some parts you, but wholly unique.
Exactly. And I think the fun thing about children's books, especially nowadays, and with your book as well, is you get books that are very empowering because you're getting kids that are still developing skills and
Yeah,
finding the magic in themselves and finding the
yeah,
magic of who they are. And that's an exciting thing about working in children's
it is.
literature is you're getting to show kids how they can be unique and special in every different way. And I think that's a great thing with Ava. She finds her voice, and showing that in the book is a way for kids to see themselves reflected, and that's such an exciting thing to do.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yes.
you did mention about your talk that's coming up. I want you to be able to tell everybody when your talks are during NCTE if they want to join in and check it out. So if you want to kind of share that.
Sure. So the writer in the classroom is on demand, so that's available now. And the other session that I'm in is actually a live roundtable session that's affirming. Aff- oh my goodness, I'm blanking out on the title. It's affirming and creating empathy through picture book and middle grade Latinx literature. And it's on Sunday, the 22nd at 10:30 in the morning of Eastern time.
Awesome. And yeah, I think everyone can go to if you go to the main hall, they have some of like the breakout rooms. They'll all be there that you can kind of click through and check all that out.
It's a very long title. And so I'm like,
A
my
lot of
brain
long
just,
titles of the breakout rooms. I'm impressed that you remembered that long of a title. You did very good at remembering. I don't think I would have remembered all of it. So we've got a few more minutes left. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to drop them in. Um, Trying to think, are you working anything exciting right now that you'd like to kind of mention? I know you said you talked a little about the folk tales and stuff like that, but is there anything else you're kind of working on that you're excited about?
so I just finished a rough draft for a new picture book, and it is loosely based on a memory. So when I was little, I used to be called the little machine, or la maquinita, just because I was very curious. And so, especially once I grew comfortable, I would just come into my great aunt's home and just start rifling through, going through her drawers or going into her closets or going. And so it's kind of exploring that idea of curiosity, and that it's kind of like shyness has a somewhat of a negative connotation at times, and yet it's so critical for discovery and for learning. So it's, who knows where I'll go. And I just finished the draft. I'm really excited about it. So we'll see.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that kind of aspect because that's such a kid thing to do. I totally did that as a kid.
Yeah.
Like if there's a drawer or something to be open, yep, I was in it.
Yeah. It's like, what's
Now,
that?
kind of the last thing, before we end our discussion is what's the main takeaway that if somebody was going to pick up your book, not know anything about it, what was the one main takeaway that you'd like them to take away from your book?
That's a hard one too. I think the main takeaway is actually with the shyness. And I meet so many people that view shyness as such a negative trait. Um, I've gotten some, I wish my kid was more outgoing, or oh, she's just so shy. And the biggest takeaway I want is, to affirm and to really just lift up the shy ones too. I know there's a lot of attention to those who are extroverted and, outgoing, and that's great. It's not an either or. The shy kids also, you know, they're okay. It's okay to be shy. We have our own set of unique traits that are useful. So it's okay to be shy.
Exactly. Everyone is welcome here.
Yeah. Yes.
So I do want to just thank you again, Alexandra, for sitting down and talking to us today. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank
Once
you so
again,
much.
her book is Feliz New Year, Ava Gabriela. It is available now. It's a wonderful book to get before the New Year's kicks off because there's a lot of celebrating, especially this year. And there's some wonderful traditions that you can do in there. If you follow Alexandra on social media as well, if you want to plug those, I know that you've been sharing
I
some
can do
fun
that.
traditions too.
Will do.
You want to share what your handles are on social media if anybody would like to
I
follow?
I will do that. I'll actually enter it into the chat.
Perfect.
And I would just wanted to say thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here and just for sharing this time with us.
Yeah, thank you everyone so much for joining us. If you do have any questions about the book, we're going to be around all weekend in our booth at NCTE. Feel free to stop by, ask me, or you can email us marketing@albertwhitman.com. We're happy to answer any questions as well. Everyone have a great NCTE. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.